We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. A good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. Thinking, the talking of the soul with itself. There is no harm in repeating a good thing. Truth is the beginning of every good to the gods, and of every good to man. Knowledge without justice ought to be called cunning rather than wisdom. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. To be conquered by yourself is of all things most shameful and vile. Wealth and poverty, one is the parent of luxury and indolence, and the other of meanness and viciousness, and both of discontent. An empty vessel makes the loudest sound, so they that have the least wit are the greatest babblers. Opinion is the medium between knowledge and ignorance. If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. All men are by nature equal, made all of the same earth by one workman. Books give a soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything. The measure of a man is what he does with power. The direction in which education starts a man will determine his future in life. Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. Do not train a child to learn by force or harshness, but direct them to it by what amuses their minds, so that you may be better able to discover with accuracy the peculiar bent of the genius of each. Bodily exercise, when compulsory, does no harm to the body, but knowledge which is acquired under compulsion obtains no hold on the mind. Ideas are the source of all things. When two friends, like you and me, are in the mood to chat, we have to go about it in a gentler and more dialectical way. By more dialectical, I mean not only that we give real responses, but that we base our responses solely on what the interlocutor admits that he himself knows. Knowledge becomes evil if the aim be not virtuous. A library of wisdom is more precious than all wealth, and all things that are desirable cannot be compared to it. Whoever therefore claims to be zealous of truth, of happiness, of wisdom or knowledge, must become a lover of books. No one is more hated than he who speaks the truth. False words are not only evil in themselves, but they infect the soul with evil. Writing is the geometry of the soul. Necessity is the mother of invention. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle. Every heart sings a song, incomplete, until another heart whispers back. Those who wish to sing always find a song. At the touch of a lover, everyone becomes a poet. Only the dead have seen the end of war. The heaviest penalty for declining to rule is to be ruled by someone inferior to yourself. According to Greek mythology, humans were originally created with 4 arms, 4 legs and a head with 2 faces. Fearing their power, Zeus split them into 2 separate parts, condemning them to spend their lives in search of their other halves. I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. Never discourage anyone who continually makes progress, no matter how slow. There is truth in wine and children. Those who tell the stories rule society. Human behavior flows from 3 main sources: desire, emotion, and knowledge. The madness of love is the greatest of heaven's blessings. Education is teaching our children to desire the right things. Courage is knowing what not to fear. There are 3 classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain. The beginning is the most important part of the work. The object of education is to teach us to love what is beautiful. A house that has a library in it has a soul. How can you prove whether at this moment we are sleeping, and all our thoughts are a dream, or whether we are awake, and talking to one another in the waking state? Musical innovation is full of danger to the state, for when modes of music change, the fundamental laws of the state always change with them. Excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. We do not act rightly because we are excellent. In fact, we achieve excellence by acting rightly. A hero is born among 100, a wise man is found among 1,000, but an accomplished one might not be found even among 100,000 men. Nothing beautiful without struggle. Any man may easily do harm, but not every man can do good to another. For this feeling of wonder shows that you are a philosopher, since wonder is the only beginning of philosophy. True friendship can exist only between equals. Love is the name for our pursuit of wholeness, for our desire to be complete. Man is a being in search of meaning. How could they see anything but the shadows if they were never allowed to move their heads? The soul takes flight to the world that is invisible, but there arriving she is sure of bliss and forever dwells in paradise. Knowledge which is acquired under compulsion has no hold on the mind. Therefore do not use compulsion, but let early education be a sort of amusement. You will then be better able to discover the child's natural bent. I would teach children music, physics, and philosophy, but most importantly music, for the patterns in music and all the arts are the keys to learning. He was a wise man who invented God. He whom loves touches not walks in darkness. That's what education should be, I said, the art of orientation. Educators should devise the simplest and most effective methods of turning minds around. It shouldn't be the art of implanting sight in the organ, but should proceed on the understanding that the organ already has the capacity, but is improperly aligned and isn't facing the right way. Poetry is nearer to vital truth than history. At the touch of love everyone becomes a poet. Knowledge is the food of the soul. Of all the animals, the boy is the most unmanageable. Musical training is a more potent instrument than any other, because rhythm and harmony find their way into the inward places of the soul. Philosophy is the highest music. The man who makes everything that leads to happiness depends upon himself, and not upon other men, has adopted the very best plan for living happily. This is the man of moderation, the man of manly character and of wisdom. Beauty of style and harmony and grace and good rhythm depend on simplicity. Lack of activity destroys the good condition of every human being. Those who don't know must learn from those who do. In order for man to succeed in life, God provided him with two means, education and physical activity. Not separately, one for the soul and the other for the body, but for the two together. With these means, man can attain perfection. The most effective kind of education is that a child should play amongst lovely things. Astronomy compels the soul to look upwards and leads us from this world to another. I have hardly ever known a mathematician who was capable of reasoning. A life without investigation is not worth living. The man who finds that in the course of his life he has done a lot of wrong often wakes up at night in terror, like a child with a nightmare, and his life is full of foreboding. But the man who is conscious of no wrongdoing is filled with cheerfulness and with the comfort of old age. Honesty is for the most part less profitable than dishonesty. Man is a tame or civilized animal. Nevertheless, he requires proper instruction and a fortunate nature, and then of all animals he becomes the most divine and most civilized. But if he be insufficiently or ill-educated, he is the most savage of earthly creatures. All learning has an emotional base. We do not learn, and that what we call learning is only a process of recollection. The soul of man is immortal and imperishable. If it were necessary either to do wrong or to suffer it, I should choose to suffer rather than do it. No matter how hard you fight the darkness, every light casts a shadow, and the closer you get to the light, the darker that shadow becomes. It is our duty to select the best and most dependable theory that human intelligence can supply, and use it as a raft to ride the seas of life. Love is a madness produced by an unsatisfiable rational desire to understand the ultimate truth about the world. I prefer nothing, unless it is true. Not exact, but the two most important questions are: who will teach the children? What they teach them? Physical excellence does not of itself produce a good mind and character. On the other hand, excellence of mind and character will make the best of the physique it is given. There will be no end to the troubles of the state or indeed of humanity until philosophers become kings, or until those we now call kings really and truly become philosophers. Life must be lived as play, playing certain games, making sacrifices, singing and dancing, and then a man will be able to propitiate the gods, and defend himself against his enemies, and win in the contest. He who is of a calm and happy nature will hardly feel the pressure of age. But to him who is of an opposite disposition, youth and age are equally a burden. We are twice armed if we fight with faith. Reality is created by the mind. We can change our reality by changing our mind. The wise man will want to be ever with him who is better than himself. Every king springs from a race of slaves, and every slave had kings among his ancestors. The evil never attains to any real friendship, either with good or evil. Light is the shadow of God. The untrained mind keeps up a running commentary, labeling everything, judging everything. Best to ignore that commentary. Don't argue or resist, just ignore. Deprived of attention and interest, this voice gets quieter and quieter and eventually just shuts up. And when one of them meets the other half, the actual half of himself, whether he be a lover of youth or a lover of another sort, the pair are lost in an amazement of love and friendship and intimacy, and one will not be out of the other's sight, as I may say, even for a moment. The soul takes nothing with her to the next world but her education and her culture. At the beginning of the journey to the next world, one's education and culture can either provide the greatest assistance, or else act as the greatest burden, to the person who has just died.